So would you like a voice test, Marie-Claire? Okay. Um, I'm ready to talk about anything you like. I'm very happy that it's Jean-Pierre's birthday. So if let me know when you think when you think my levels are good. You think I should speak perhaps a bit closer. Hold on, let me raise the microphone. So they're a bit. How about this? Does it sound like what you want? Okay, that sounds good.
So now it's my turn to completely talk randomly for a couple of minutes. So I just keep chatting away until she says, okay.
Okay. So we're here with political blogger Megan Carpentier, who has mostly recently blogged for Glamour and Wonket. Thank you very much for being here with us.
Thank you for having me.
So there is, let's talk about the presidential campaign for a bit. There is pressure on Hillary Clinton to step down. Hillary Clinton has about 100 delegates fewer than her opponent Barack Obama as the rate for the nomination goes on, but still a lot of closely fought state primaries to go. Some Democrats, like House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, are visibly worried, and they are suggesting that the long presidential nomination battle between Clinton and Obama will weaken the party, divide it, and wreck its chances of winning the White House back in November. But do you think, first of all, that it's true? Do you think a long and protracted nomination campaign is necessarily such a curse?
I think there are two things to think about when thinking about this question. And the first is the fact that the fight between Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton has resulted in so many people paying so much more attention to the Democratic race than the Republican race that they are outpacing John McCain in fundraising 8-1 right now, which is a very important standard of who is interested. And on top of that, the press coverage is 90% about the two of them. In addition to that, I think both of them are having their skeletons pulled out of the closet very early. You see with the Jeremiah Wright case that those statements coming out in advance of the primaries affected Barack Obama negatively.
And as a reminder for our audience, you say Jeremiah Wright, of course, the controversial minister, former minister of Obama's church in Chicago, who said, among other things, that he believed the American government had invented the HIV virus to ravage the black American community, that Israel, an American ally, had been guilty of state terrorism, things of that sort.
Things of that sort. And that really hurt his poll numbers and prompted him to give this big speech on race in America. Had that happened in October, that would have been much more harmful for his campaign, but having pulled it out of the closet so early, it's not going to be in voters' minds in the same way were he to be the nominee.
Well, let's talk about, in fact, about what you call, pulling one's skeletons out of the closet. I think a colloquialism for speaking about, scrutiny of a candidate's past, associations, that sort of things. Now, Eugene Robinson of the Washington Post is one of a growing number of commentators who say that John McCain, the Republican, in fact, has had a bit of a quote-unquote free ride. There hasn't been much scrutiny of his positions. There hasn't been much scrutiny of, what they consider his real political stances. Some commentators are saying McCain is routinely being portrayed as more independent from the Bush administration, more moderate, less conservative than he really is. They point out that he is, in fact, a strong supporter of the war in Iraq. I mean, do you agree with all that? Has John McCain had it relatively easy so far for all the scrutiny that has been heaped on the Democrats instead of him?
I think he has to a degree. He hasn't faced the same sort of scrutiny, although, of course, this is his second presidential campaign, and he faced a lot of scrutiny in 2000, and many of the charges that were leveled against him at that time are still around today. I think there's no mistaking his position on the Iraq war. He's been very clear that he's a big supporter of our continued engagement in Iraq in a war. I think, as I said, to a degree, the fact that he's getting paid no attention cuts both ways. It makes it very hard for him to raise money. It makes it very hard for him to connect with voters. He's just launched a bus tour of states that are, relevant to him where he hasn't campaigned before even, and he's getting hardly any attention for that because everyone is caught up in the minutia of the fight between Clinton and Obama. There was wall-to-wall coverage today of Obama bowling 7 frames. And it's reached a level of almost absurdity that every single thing that Clinton or Obama does is completely scrutinized by the media all day, and John McCain can give a speech on foreign policy and it gets 600 words in the Washington Post and 500 in the New York Times, and everyone else talks about bowling.
Now, let's go back to the Democratic race for a bit. Implicit in, the worries of top Democrats about a long and protracted nomination battle is that such a battle could be exceptionally nasty. Then again, I mean, look at the 1988 race. Senator Bob Dole, a Republican candidate, telling his opponent, then Vice President George Bush, stop lying about my record during a joint live TV appearance. This does not stop the Republicans from winning the November election rather handily. I mean, do you think a long and protracted battle necessarily will hurt the party that much? Would you think a nasty battle will hurt the party that much?
Well, I think you're already seeing a nasty battle hurting the party to a degree. The most recent polls that are coming out is you're seeing a very divisive split between Obama supporters and Clinton supporters, where you have 20% of Obama supporters saying they wouldn't vote for Clinton in a general election, and you have almost 30% of Clinton supporters saying they wouldn't vote for Obama in a general election. And you see, Ralph Nader, the independent candidate who used to be a Green Party candidate, coming into the race and polling at 5%, which is basically the margin between the either Democratic candidate and John McCain. So I think you're seeing a lot, it bringing forth a lot of discomfort among Democratic voters that they're getting so into their own candidates being the better candidate that they're almost dismissing the other Democratic candidate out of hand. I think that's a lot of what the party leaders are worried about right now.
At the same time, on the Republican side, some Republican insiders are very worried that some of the more hardcore conservative elements will not support John McCain, who, as you alluded to a little bit earlier, is facing charges that he's not conservative enough, that he's not a true believer, that sort of things, right?
Yep. I mean, I think what you see with John McCain is you see the hardcore conservatives in the Republican Party who were not interested in seeing McCain be the candidate, but who were split between a variety of candidates during the primaries, whether they be Mike Huckabee or Mitt Romney, who have since dropped out. They really split the conservative base, leaving the sort of more moderate, more, say, old school Republicans to vote for John McCain, and he became the nominee. And you see a lot of soul searching among conservatives in America today about whether or not they can support a candidate who is more moderate on a lot of fiscal issues in particular, and to a lesser degree on social issues than they see themselves as a party. You see calls for, among conservative commentators, mostly jokingly, I think, to boycott the election.
Now, one of the arguments of the Clinton camp for not withdrawing from the race in the face of calls by others is, the Republican Party. That's basically the way the argument of Clinton operatives goes. The Republican Party is very skilled at quote-unquote demonizing its opponents, meaning, for the most part, releasing television advertisements that are deadly effective at weakening a candidate or his credibility. That was seen in 2004 in ads against John Kerry, the Democratic nominee. And the argument further goes, Barack Obama is just too young, too inexperienced to respond to what is called the Republican attack machine, quote-unquote. The Clintons, won't do that mistake. How do you view that sort of argument?
I mean, I think there's certainly a level of unintentional irony in the Clinton camp making that argument, because you see them doing many of the same things to Barack Obama. You see the Clinton camp coming out with negative ads, questioning his credibility. That's the other major concern among party leaders, is that the Clintons' attack ads, which they've ramped up since changing campaign staff in February, are going to actually damage who will be the eventual nominee, which most party leaders at this point think will probably be Barack Obama.
Okay. Megan Carpentier, thank you for helping enlighten us about the last developments in the U.S. presidential campaign right here on The Voice of America. And we look forward to, more observation, more analysis, and perhaps more of it with you during this campaign. Thank you
very much.